Well, good morning, everyone, and I want to welcome you to the Neighborhood Summit for 2021. It's a little bit different than last year. We were all together last year in a nice warm room and had a lot of great presentations. And so this year we're going to do this virtually like we're doing most things. And we're going to condense the presentation this year. So I'm happy that we have a great speaker for you today. Going to pass on a lot of tools and examples of what's going on in her city. And then following her presentation, we'll have a question and answer session. We've got enough city staff on here to answer about 95% of the questions asked. And then during that, we will also have some trivia. We've got some prizes to kind of keep you hooked through the video. So before we begin, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Bruce Archer. Before he speaks, I just will remind everyone that we are recording this. And so if you have to step away or you want to see something again, or share it with some friends, we will put this out on all of our platforms beginning on Monday, so we can have a little bit longer shelf life for this conference. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Archer. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Cliff. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to get to be with you this morning. And I want to share from my heart that keeping our neighborhoods vibrant and connected, whether they're one of our newest neighborhoods or whether it's one of our first neighborhoods, and we have many of those, keeping everyone together, keeping everyone informed, keeping everyone involved in improving the neighborhood is critical for moving our city forward. It's something that's been a priority the last few years and something that needs to continue to be more of a priority. And I'm so proud of the last few years of this neighborhood summit, where we try to empower citizens with useful information to improve neighborhoods. And in spite of the pandemic, I'm proud that we're still doing this virtually, because we can't let up supporting our neighborhood leaders. We've got some fantastic neighborhood leaders all throughout our city who sacrifice, who work hard to make things a little bit better in their neighborhood. And so I will say I've been concerned the last few months during the pandemic that we haven't had as much esprit de corps. We haven't had the in-person meetings that we used to have that were so important and so valuable. I know some have really tried hard to have some Zoom meetings or some other virtual type meetings, but we know those never take the place of good quality in-person, eye-to-eye meetings. And we'll get back to that, Lord willing, as this pandemic continues to get a little bit better each day. But I want to say, going forward, first of all, our staff has some great resources to provide neighborhoods who want to do more, either with existing neighborhood leaders who maybe need some new tools in their toolbox, or for long-time neighborhood leaders who just want somebody to walk alongside them and support them. But the main thing is to stay connected and stay involved with each other in the neighborhood. There's no one way to do things. Again, we've got some resources here in the city that we can help, and a team that can help you. But if you're doing something that's working well for your neighborhood, keep doing it, and we'll support you that way as well. We've got some neighborhoods who have Facebook pages who everyone keeps in touch and keeps each other informed. If there's something strange going on, everyone knows what it is. Everyone celebrates each other, and we have community taking place. And that's the key thing. If we let that drop ever in this town, we're going to be in trouble. So I hope today and in the coming days, we'll all be motivated and resolved to keep spurring each other on in our neighborhoods. And also, we need new faces stepping up to help lead neighborhood groups. We've got some neighborhood leaders who've been around for a long time, and if they want to keep staying around, we'll be thankful for that. But sometimes people get tired, they need to take a break, or they want to do something different for their community. So I think one of the key things for all of our neighborhood leaders is, and all of us in council leadership, is to be looking for recruiting and trying to find good men and women in the neighborhoods who can step up and be the future crime watch leader, be a future block captain leader, be someone who might serve on one of our city boards or commissions, or maybe even run for council one day. We've got to be looking for future leaders out in the neighborhoods and lift them up, because if not, Who's going to lead the city one day? Who's going to keep us moving forward? So just some things to think about today in the coming days. But whatever happens, let's make sure we continue to stay energized and engaged in the neighborhoods. Let's support our neighborhood leaders, and let's get a lot of folks rallying around them to help them do better things. So again, thank y'all for the time today. Staff, thank you for your work. Neighborhood leaders, thank you for your sacrifice and your work every day. Let's do great things this next year in Mesquite. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mayor. And we appreciate the words of encouragement. And I think that it's very important that we have engaged neighbors and engaged leaders to keep the community going. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Maria Martinez, Director of Neighborhood Services, and she's going to introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you, Mr. Kahili and Mayor Archer, for your wonderful words there. I am very excited to introduce Ms. Catherine Huckaby. She serves as the Community Engagement Manager with the City of Fort Worth in the Community Engagement Office. She works with residents on building neighborhood capacity and developing communication networks. And as you all know, the City of Fort Worth is no small city. She works with networks of city stakeholders such as faith-based groups, neighborhood associations, schools, and nonprofit organizations vital to the success of city initiatives and programs. She recently began her second term as the president of Neighborhoods USA, also known as NUSA. NUSA provides opportunities for diverse people and organizations to share their ideas, values, and build experiences in stronger communities on a national platform. The NUSA 2021 virtual conference is actually being hosted by the City of Fort Worth this May, on May 19th through the 22nd. And her prior experiences also include volunteer services at South Lake, managing the Noble Mediation Services, and a children's director for mid-sized faith-based programs. We're very excited to have her speak here with us today and share any community engagement ideas she can give our community. And I'd like to welcome Catherine. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. You're muted, Catherine. I'm so sorry. And I'm going to pull up her slide.
So first of all, thank you. I loved hearing your mayor, because obviously I'm going to be tagging in on everything that he said. So we're all doing the same thing, just maybe in a little bit unique and different ways. And so it's just a real pleasure to be able to join you guys. Texas is so different. I can tell you this just from my experience being on the Neighborhood USA board. We work together, all of our cities. We share resources. We want to help each other. And so it's an opportunity to be able to come in and talk to Mesquite. I do want to kind of do a little bit of a shout out for your team, for Maria and Yolanda. They are a part of a group that Fort Worth is also a part of. It's called NERA. It is the Neighborhood Engagement and Revitalization Alliance. And there are probably about 25 DFW cities who all get together, different departments, whether it's community engagement or neighborhood services, different names, but we all do very similar things. And we share best practices. We beg, borrow, and steal resources from each other. And it is because of NERA and all of the cities that are a part of it that I think that we've been able to literally expand the resources that we're able to provide within our city and a lot of the cities that we work with as well. As she mentioned, obviously Fort Worth is a large city, but we have the very similar challenges to what every one of you do as well. We've been hit with a lot of challenges with COVID and with the storm that we just experienced as well. But a lot of what we've been able to realize is that there are so many successes that have come out of this opportunity. And I know a lot of people use challenges and opportunity and successes as keywords, but they have been pivotal in my office's ability to be able to literally move forward with the work that we're trying to do. One of the key things that we have been able to leverage throughout all of these experiences for the past year are how important our partnerships are, how important it is to be a part of different teams and to really take advantage of these opportunities so that we can try to literally steer forward. So just the next slide. One of the things that I want to kind of do at first is just talk a little bit about our office And what we do, what we've done, how we have been able to set up some of the key teams and partnerships that we deal with now. And then I'm going to delve a little bit into how we have been able to leverage those throughout COVID and beyond as well. So that is a lovely map of the city of Fort Worth. We are 950,000 strong. We're going to be hitting 1 million here fairly quickly. I manage an office of 9. And if you look at the different color codes on that map, each one of those colors represent the area that one of our community engagement liaisons is assigned to. So for our office, what that means is we register neighborhood associations, we register business alliances, municipalities that are around us, school districts, anybody that could possibly be a partner to us, we're going to register them. That means getting their contact information, who their leaders are, what areas they're representing, so that when we need to share information on a dime, when we need to try to form a new partnership or a new initiative, we know who to connect with. And so what they do is they help form neighborhood associations a lot, or they will help to really re-engage existing neighborhood associations. That is probably 50% of what our office does. It is very much about the grassroots neighborhoods. We have about 300 registered neighborhood associations. Half of those are HOAs and half of them are voluntary. Two very different types of organizations, and they require different levels of engagement from our office. But for an average community engagement liaison, that means about 50 to 55 neighborhood associations that they are supposed to be leading. It also means reaching out to all the elementary schools within that area. It means reaching out to the faith-based organizations. And we attend as many meetings as we possibly can, so that when we go, we can talk about the initiatives, the programs, and the resources that are available with the city. We also take a lot of notes about the successes and the challenges that they're experiencing. And we take that back to our leadership team in the city. And we say, you know, ABC HOA, they're struggling with crime right now. Or they're trying to plan a huge special event and they need guest speakers and they need maybe some assistance in trying to find area agencies who might be able to sponsor. So we really try to connect them with all the resources that we can possibly pull together to solve whatever issues they're having, but also to really highlight the great things that are happening. So we do that, you know, as I said, we take a lot of notes. Those are formal reports that go to our mayor and council and all of our assistant city managers and directors. And they know when they get those reports in every day, they just are looking for keywords, codes. What are the things that are happening? It is also a great way for our leaders to see how many people are engaged, because we tell them how many people were at that meeting. They know what city staff are there. And so it's a great way, again, to make sure that we're all working together for our neighborhoods. One of the things that we have worked very hard on doing is making sure that we're leveraging our internal staff as well. So we have about 7,000 employees in the city of Fort Worth, and we communicate with them just like we do with our neighborhood leaders. So we regularly have internal communications. It's called the Roundup. And we put information out there about anything that's happening in the community. We try to get them to volunteer as well, just like we do with our neighborhood leaders. We also have an internal Hispanic work group that we formed about 2 years ago that was pivotal during the beginning of COVID. This is a group of individuals who are really confident in their skills when it comes to translations. And they also have totally different networks than we do within the city, whether it's a local church that they work with or a smaller group of area agencies that we may not have been aware of, so that any communication that we are putting out to our neighborhood leaders or our churches, they're also getting that and they're expanding that out even further. So that has been a huge positive for us, is seeing that come to fruition and see all the ways that we've been able to kind of work through that group. Right now we have about 200 faith-based groups that are registered with our city. And again, that just means we have their contact information. One of the key things we do as an office is we communicate. So we have a weekly bulletin that goes out. It's kind of like an email newsletter that goes out to all of our neighborhood leaders. There are about 3,000 people that are on that list. And the goal is to get them to then forward that to their distribution list. So in the world of COVID, it meant every new COVID resource that was out there, anything that funding that we could share with them, that all went out to them. And it was almost on a daily basis during the height of COVID. On a regular week, it's just a weekly resource for them. It is in English and in Spanish, and we set that up so that they can either forward it or it's saved as a PDF that they can then attach to anything that they want. We strongly encourage them to take off our name. We don't care. Copy and paste the information, put it on your own website, put it on Facebook, put it on Nextdoor. We don't need the credit for any of this information. We just want it out there. We want to make sure that people are utilizing that. So we do the community engagement weekly bulletin, and then we have a faith-based weekly bulletin that goes out just to our churches, where we are tailoring that information for their congregations. There are some things that our neighborhood leaders care more about that maybe individual neighbors might not care about it the same way. And so we try to tailor those opportunities. Just last week or 2 weeks ago when we had the storm, that faith-based distribution list was pivotal for us to be able to open up warming centers all throughout the city. It was just a quick email out to everyone through the list, and we were able to really expand the opportunities within the city just through that one quick email for that. One of the first things that I would say that we have noticed over the last year and a half is how much more vocal and engaged our neighbors are. At first, they were very quiet, not really believing, like most of us, that this was going to continue on for more than a week or two. But as it continued to go forward, people really started getting scared. We have probably half and half in our city, where we've got people who don't want to leave their house. And then we have other people that are still out working, that are, not working from home, and that are out and about quite a bit. And so we're having to engage them in different ways, but they are reaching out to the city to find answers that they haven't really had to ask before. Next slide. And so one of the things that our office has done in the past that we've also been able to then leverage into the world that we're in right now. So we do go to neighborhood meetings. We do presentations for students. We average about 1,500 meetings and presentations a year for our team. But we also try to make sure that we're doing some side things for them that are special and unique that our office does. For instance, we have a street sign topper program, and we kind of stole that program from TPW. They used to do it many years ago. And because of funding and capacity, it was something that kind of fell through the cracks. And so we volunteered, like so many of us around the table do, to take things over, because we saw it as an opportunity to really engage neighborhoods at a different level, not just putting street sign toppers on it, but encouraging the entire neighborhood to vote on what that would look like, to vote on where the sign should be placed, to then have a big celebration when they get installed and have a party. So it was a different way to bring community engagement into the process instead of it just being a regular routine thing that maybe one or two people would decide. So we've took that over recently. The TCU Neighbor to Neighbor program, we have Texas Christian University. There are probably a dozen universities within the Fort Worth area or just outside. But with TCU, about 3 or 4 years ago, we had a few challenges between neighborhood leaders, TCU staff and administration, and the kids that come and attend TCU. Anytime you've got a local college or university that's near you, there's going to be some challenges. They have parties, they stay up late at night, different things. And so it's a new experience for them. And so what we were able to do is come in, help form a group, and we named it Neighbor to Neighbor. And what we're doing is educating neighbors about the experiences the kids are having They know about what their cycle of events are, when they're having games, when it's spring break for them, when are they going to be moving into the homes and cleaning up. But then it's also educating those kids as soon as they move in to what it's like to be a neighbor in a residential area, and what are some of the expectations. And there are some rules within our city guidelines, code compliance issues and sound ordinances. And so we brought all of that together. And then we also brought our neighborhood leaders to the table, and they're able to then kind of share information and resources, but more, they wanted to be heard about the things that they were most concerned about. And so we had city of staff, we had neighborhood leaders, we had representatives from the students, and we had TCU leadership all around the table to kind of vent this stuff out and figure out what was going to work better for everyone. More importantly, who is responsible for different things? Is it TCU's responsibility to handle this? Is it more of a personal responsibility? Is it police? So we developed a network, a plan. First couple of months, not going to lie, it was a little bit of chaos. More people wanted to be heard than maybe wanted to listen. But now when we meet, there's very rarely anything that needs to be discussed, because people are already reaching out to the right people. They don't need us to help mediate those conversations. It's more of, what are the positive things that are happening? Or we know the kids are going through a problem right now with COVID and maybe they're isolated. What can we do as neighbors to help them with that? And so it's just been a really positive experience by being able to leverage an issue and make it into a positive. Our office is also, that's our mayor, Betsy Price. We work a lot with mayor and council to go through different initiatives that are important to them. And for our mayor, it is all about reading and making sure that kids can read at grade level 3. And so we help, again, in the schools, going out and making sure that all of our presentations are TEKS correlated, that we are focusing on making sure that literacy is a prime component of everything that we're doing when we're out and about with the kids. And then we do kind of a version of what you guys do. We call it the Mayor's Community Engagement Workshops and Neighborhood Awards. And it looks different every year. It's expanded every year, but we typically will have 15 to 20 workshops that people can attend, led by experts in the field, sometimes from people from NERA. We also have about 50 exhibitors at city departments. It could be area agencies that have a new resource they want to educate people about. And then we also do an award ceremony with about 16 different award categories. It could be something like Neighborhood of the Year. It could be an honor for Best Spirit or Pride or Collaborative Effort. Two of the fun awards that we have created over the last few years, we have a Police Officer of the Year and a Code Compliance Officer of the Year. And these are nominated by the neighborhood associations. City staff has no say-so over who wins those awards. As long as they are in good standing with the department, then they're eligible to win. And it's probably one of the most coveted awards that any of city staff get, because it means a lot to be nominated for one of these awards from the neighborhoods that you're actually serving. Next slide. Some of the other things that we have been involved in include, unfortunately, things that come up within our neighborhoods and our city that are challenges. A couple of years ago, we had a police officer that did not respond to a community challenge that in the way that he should have, and in a way that the city was proud of. And it really caused an uproar in the community. And so we get pulled into things like that. We'll help to have those collaborative conversations about how do we do better? What happened? Let's get to the root of it. And now how can we all work together to move forward? Anytime there's an opportunity to get people together and really delve into the weeds of what has happened and give our neighbors an opportunity to listen, we're going to be a part of that. And so this was a collaborative conversation that we just held this past summer that was an extension of that original experience. The Community Conference on Homelessness is a partnership that that we were asked to get involved with Directions Home. That is a category within our city that deals with those that are experiencing homelessness. So if they will help to provide resources for maybe vouchers that they need or other mental health services. And so one of the challenges that the city saw was we have a lot of faith-based groups that are doing out feeding on the weekends, or maybe they are wanting to provide, clothing, other resources that they might have. Sometimes they just want to be a good ministry resource. And then we have tons of area agencies that are doing very similar things. And so sometimes there's an overlap, and you might have one part of the city that has too many resources and another part that doesn't have enough. And so what we did was we helped them to just hold a conference. We had about 200 churches and area agencies that all came together and talked about in roundtable forums what they were doing and how can we, instead of each doing things kind of similar, how can we partner together and work to collaboratively instead of independently and get more accomplished. And it was probably one of the best conferences that we were able to hold. It was just a one-day event. Amazing how many people were not aware of all the other people that were trying to do the same things. And so that was a really good opportunity for us as well. Next page. And because our hands are in so many different areas throughout the city, when COVID hit, it allowed us to immediately be able to kind of pivot and leverage those resources. Most cities are conduits for being able to help out with funding from the government. And so Fort Worth Cares was our way of making sure that we had that information out there and that we were able to take applications. Our office helped to coordinate all of that. We immediately had web pages up, just like so many of you did, with list of community resources and business resources. We were the ones that people were emailing saying, can you put this up there on the site to make sure that we have that? We partnered together with United Way, and we started making phone calls to targeted zip codes that were having the highest percentage of COVID positive tests. And even within our city, like so many other cities, operations shut down, community centers had to close, and libraries and a lot of public buildings as well, other public buildings. And so just for our staff, it was how do we keep people working if they're working from home and they can't do the job that they're originally supposed to be doing. So we kind of created a database where we could get different departments who would send us listings of, we need people who can do this and it can be done remotely. You need these skill sets. And then we had other departments that said, we have this many people, here's all their names and here's what they can do. Can you connect them together? So we kind of became the division that took over that as well, just to try to keep as many people working as we possibly could. You see the lovely screen of Zoom. Our office, for whatever reason, became suddenly the experts, which we had to learn to be, on how to host and train people to conduct neighborhood meetings. If your neighborhood association is not doing virtual meetings right now, you need to be doing it. It's hard if you've never done it. It is difficult sometimes to get people to where they feel comfortable doing it because they're going to be on the computer, they're going to be calling in sometimes. It is a challenge, and I'm not going to underestimate that, but we have seen more engagement because of virtual meetings, and I see looking forward that being a staple. Not that it's going to take over in-person meetings, but for some things, it's going to be the better way to be able to make sure that you're getting more engagement. I definitely see more hybrid meetings where you do have a public piece of it, and then there are people that will be able to do it virtually, those that are traveling, those that are homebound, or if they're sick or they can't get across town to be able to attend a meeting. So that is one of the things that we've really our team has had to train up and then be equipped to train other people and host those meetings. Just like your mayor mentioned earlier, a lot of our leaders are, in maybe their 60s or above. And we have staff members that are same. I'm 51. And so I'm getting there where it's not as easy as what you think it is to learn all of these new things and pivot. But if we don't start taking advantage of technology, I think that's going to be one of those things that are going to keep us back a little bit. And so that is something, if there was one thing that I could really suggest to people, it's making sure that you're staying up on technology and the new ways to communicate with people. One of the best things that I think that came out of COVID was our Worth Sharing program. There were probably about the first month where most of what we were hearing and most of what we were concerned about were the negative things. It was the COVID numbers today. It's, these people don't have food. These people are having this challenge. And so we started reaching out and asking, tell us something great that happened. Tell us something that, that one person in your neighborhood that is making the biggest difference, who is suddenly making lunches for the neighborhood, what is happening and how are people able to engage in a different way? And we started sharing those stories. A lot of them became front page news, and they were, because they started out small, but we were able to share that locally throughout the entire city. So really great opportunities that have kind of been formed because we were able to start some of these foundational works being in the city with the partnerships that we already had. Next slide. So this, sometimes pictures tell more than what anything else can. Our big mantra in the city is, in my division especially, is our goal is to connect people to other resources. We are not the experts, but we know who is. And we want to build those relationships with anybody and everyone that's willing to do that with us. And then we want to educate them about area resources, city initiatives. How can we help you? And this is one of those pictures. It's actually not the city of Fort Worth. It's from Round Rock, and they're one of our Neighborhood USA partners. But they were having some issues with police and community relations. And so this is a cute picture of one of their officers painting the fingernails of some of the kids. They went out and had a great community event to educate people about what police officers do day to day, make sure that people feel more comfortable around their local police officers and connect them to resources, but also really to start to build those trusting relationships. This is what we all do. Whether we are neighborhood leaders, whether we are city staff, this is what we're supposed to be doing, is bridging that gap no matter what it takes to be able to get there. Next slide. This is, I think if you just look at the faces on this, these are the type of community events that will make people want to be a part of what you're doing. There's a lot of things that happen within our HOAs where it's, people are not following the covenants that they're supposed to, or maybe they're not paying their dues. And we can get so wound up in the nitty gritty of things that we forget to celebrate the great things that are happening. So in this neighborhood, and this is one of our neighborhoods, they have a little fun run every year. And this little fun run is able to raise money for the neighborhood and the local elementary school. But the smiles on their faces that you see is the leader of it giving the runner who has won an award. They're both equally excited and they're both engaged. This is just a fun community event where you get everybody together to benefit others that are in need. Next slide. This is the Las Familias de Rosemont Neighborhood Association. This is actually our Neighborhood of the Year winner from last year. And they also went on to Neighborhood USA conference and competed and won the first place in that award as well. This is a group that is entirely bilingual. It's our only fully bilingual neighborhood association. They had more struggles starting off. It took them almost 1.5 years to form their first, their neighborhood association from beginning to end. But they were able to have some of the most positive, engaging meetings and interactions with their neighbors. They were again, you can see on their faces, this was their big first meeting where they were getting out in the community. They had mariachi bands, they had police on horseback, they had tons of area agencies there to give resources to neighbors. And it was just a fun way to get everybody together and understand why it's important to do more than just the typical outreach to get people engaged in their community. We always love talking about them. They're a fun group. And then next slide. This is just another example of a community event where, again, literacy is key in most of our communities. And unfortunately, the statistics show us that our kids are not reading at grade level. And so anything that we can do, whether it's giving away books, whether it is encouraging people by going and reading in the schools, this is not just a school effort. It really has to be at a neighborhood association's level as well. How can we connect more? How can we be a part of our local neighborhoods? So next slide. Then it all kind of leads into, for us, a part of the Neighborhoods USA organization. And as was mentioned before, the city of Fort Worth is hosting this. This is not the conference we wanted it to be. I'm not going to lie. We were hoping to have 1,000 people just come and join us in downtown Fort Worth and be able to see all the amazing things that are there. But we decided back at the end of last year that to go ahead and pivot. Let's do it virtual. We can do this. And we think it's going to be an amazing opportunity, and actually probably a better conference than what we had originally planned because of some of the great things that we're going to be able to offer. So Neighborhoods USA is a national nonprofit organization made up of 21 volunteer board members, including myself. And what we do is we basically work with a host city. Every year it's a different city, and we travel to that city and we promote all the great things that that city is doing within neighborhoods and city staff. But more importantly, we provide a ton of education and networking opportunities. So this year, we've been able to pull together 60 different educational workshops. These are experts in their field from all across the United States. And the majority of those are all APA certified. So if you are wanting to get any accreditation, then you can do that. We will also have 50 roundtable discussions. So these are opportunities for us to, we've thrown out topics, and then you've got 30 minutes to brainstorm, share resources, and everyone will know the topics ahead of time so that they can decide which ones they want to attend. We also have 7 neighborhood pride tours. These are areas of our city that have seen the most revitalization, not necessarily in economic development. Sometimes it's community engagement. Sometimes it's more public art. They're all different reasons. Some have had some significant challenges with engagement, and others, again, they're all a little bit different. And so we're going to highlight what those look like. We've recorded all the videos for that, and then we'll have panel discussions at the end of it. Then we have 3 keynote speakers who are going to encourage and inspire you guys. And then our neighborhood awards ceremony also, again, a national event. We're still anticipating over 1,000 people to participate in the event. And we encourage you guys to attend. Probably half of the people that attend are just like you, neighborhood association leaders. The other half are area agencies, city staff, and elected officials. So you're going to get a breadth of knowledge and a lot of networking opportunities. And the next slide. So for you, if you're interested in registering for the conference and finding out a little bit more information, you can go to noosa.org, and it will bring up this site here for you so that you can download the registration booklet. You can get more information about the overall conference, but also the organization as a whole. And the next slide, last but not least, one of the things that I would really like to see is on the noosa website, we have what we call affiliate memberships. It's free. So if every single neighborhood association on this call wants to be a member of noosa, just means that you are doing exactly what you're doing. There is no charge for it. You get put on our distribution list so that you get access to new resources. But if you look at Alabama on this slide, you see different cities and neighborhood associations that are listed. I did not pull the Texas one because we just put 96 new neighborhood associations on there from Fort Worth. So if we can get 70 from Mesquite to go on there, I want Texas to be like page after page after page of people who are all like-minded and care about their neighborhoods and are actively engaged. we would love to be able to have your name on that for the conference as well. So if you want to be an affiliate member, then all you have to do is go to noosa.org and click on the number 1 where it says apply online. Takes about a minute. We just need your contact information, how many members you have, and an email address, and we will be more than happy to put you in on that. Just want to thank all of you for being so engaged in your neighborhood. For you to even be on this call and this discussion means that means that you genuinely care and you want to be able to steer forward, and you want to be able to engage with your neighborhoods and with your communities a little bit more effectively. So I appreciate the time that you've given us today, and we'll welcome any questions that you happen to have.
Catherine, thank you so much for your time this morning and sharing your enthusiasm is evident and just in your knowledge and what you're doing over in Fort Worth. So we really appreciate you sharing today. So we'll encourage anyone with a question to use the raise your hand feature. And so got Millie Arnold. I'm going to allow you to talk at this time. So just remember to unmute.
Yes, Catherine, my question is regarding your weekly newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
What types of topics do you present? And you present it to all of the individuals that are in charge of neighborhood crime watches and that sort of thing?
Yes, ma'am. So what we do is the weekly bulletin has the first section is all citywide events that we really feel like are important for neighborhood people to know. So if it's maybe it is a cleanup, the Great American Cleanup, and we want to make sure that everybody in the city is involved in that, we'll have that there. And then within it, there are links to the webpage where you could sign up or who the contact person is. Then we separate things out by council districts. You can do it anyway, but for us, it's been council districts. Typically people will know that. So they'll look at council district 2 and they'll see, these are all the public meetings that are happening in your district. Maybe there's going to be something that your council member is sponsoring. Maybe it's a chat, or if it is something specific just to that area only, people can go straight there. And then again, they can copy and paste that. If you are in District 2, you don't care about maybe all the things that are happening in 6 and 7. And so you can copy and paste the citywide and your district information and send it on. And it is all in Spanish. It's one of the, it's something we're very proud of doing, being able to translate that, because half of our community is now Hispanic in the city of Fort Worth.
That was going to be my next question, is you also have everything in Spanish as well as English. The city of Mesquite does a really good job from the city's perspective, but it's not specifically from like the neighborhood watch target area. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the city, I think the city of Mesquite does a great job, but you have to reach out and want to receive the information first. And that's the challenge, is getting individuals to sign up for things.
Yeah, if that's why we register our neighborhood associations, because if you're the president, you are our best friend. We know that you've got all the contact information for 1,500, 3,000 other people. So we will do everything short of begging you to please forward that information on every single week. And if it's really important information, then the liaisons will email you personally. So it's not just a mass email, or they'll be calling and saying, did you see this? It's really important that you pay attention to this. So we're only 9 people, almost 1 million city neighbors. We have to have all these partnerships to then share all the information for us.
Good. And then on the NUSA registration of affiliate members, do you want individual crime watch leaders to do that, or just the city to do that?
So those are individual organizations. So it could be Crime Watch, it could be a neighborhood association, it could be a nonprofit organization. Those are all considered affiliate members. There's different categories for the city, and I think Mesquite's already a city member for NUSA. Those are different categories for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Yolanda Shepard, I'm bringing you in.
Hi, I want to piggyback on what Millie said. What are the best practices for getting the neighbors involved in these activities?
What are our best? Is there a specific activity that you're looking that you want me to give you an example of?
Just a neighborhood meeting.
Just a neighborhood meeting. So for us, we try to be the biggest cheerleaders for the neighborhood associations. We say we don't work for council, we are your advocate. And so we want to do whatever we can to make sure that people understand the importance of a neighborhood association. We do it in a variety of ways. One, if you really are not meeting quorum on a continued basis, or if it's the same people every single time, or maybe you're not being able to reach out to the Hispanic community, we'll pull you into a program that we created called Reengage. And we will throw everything but the kitchen sink out to help you be able to communicate to your neighbors. We'll post on social media, and we're posting as the city. We'll put it on next door and we'll say what a great job it is. You've got this great speaker that's going to be coming out. We will do, some people don't like this, we will do robocalls. For some of our areas, that is the way to get people out to a meeting. And we'll also check and see. We use a tool called My Sidewalk. A lot of cities use, where you can pull and see what are the true demographics of a neighborhood. Sometimes our neighborhood leaders think they know the neighbors. They know the neighbors from 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or even maybe 5 years ago. Our neighborhoods are changing, so dramatically. The city of Fort Worth has doubled in its size in the last 15 years. That is a huge shift of who your true neighbors are. And sometimes we're in silos of, we don't even know our neighbors that are around us just immediately. And so we pull these reports and we go back to the neighborhood group and we say, okay, board, this is who you're really serving. And, if we just kind of go into real detail, and we'll help them create a communications plan to be able to get the word out. We will we'll go and put flyers. We'll help them with marketing if we need to. We have a graphics team. We can't print all of them, but we can print a few of them, and then we'll take them to businesses, to schools. But we will, if your neighborhood is struggling to meet quorum, we will reach out to all the partners, schools, churches, businesses, community centers, libraries that are directly around you, and we will make sure that they are all helping to promote that for you. We cannot do that for all 300 neighborhood associations for every single meeting. So we do it when there's a challenge. We've been doing this specific program for about 3 years. And so what we do is we meet with council every year and we say, okay, what are the neighborhoods that you think are struggling the most? These are the ones we think are struggling the most. Now let's figure out which ones you want us to focus on. And then we will reach out to those neighbors and say, we've noticed that maybe there's been a decrease in the people that are attending. And most of the time we're on the same page. We do not get involved in neighborhood issues. We don't go to a neighborhood and say, you're not doing a good job. We've heard this, that. We do not do that. We register them so we can communicate with them. We want to have relationships with them. But because we go to their meetings when we're invited to, and because we are trying to give them so many resources, those relationships are the foundation for us to be able to say, how can we help? Do you need our help? You've got a brand new board we just noticed because you just told us who all your new leaders are. We love to do leadership training. What is it that we can do to help? But we try to keep that boundary in place so that people don't see us as their boss, because we're not. These are all neighborhood associations made up of people that are volunteering, spending a lot of time trying to do what's right for their neighbors. And we do not want to get in the middle of that kind of stuff. The only time, again, that we will is if the board comes to us, which a lot of times they do because they're having conflict. I will help mediate some of those things for them. Or if someone from the outside contacts our office and says, I've been trying to do this with the neighborhood association, or I really want to be a part, but they won't let me. Sometimes things like that happen. And there's always two sides to every story. We try to just bring everybody together and just say, were you aware of this? 99.999% of the time they were, and there's other things that need to be kind of discussed, but we try to bridge that gap and figure out a way to bring everybody together. But those boundaries have to be very clear for our office on what we can and cannot do. We're not the principal. We don't we don't get to force people to do certain things. So, you know, and I don't want to be ever. So do we just want to be the helpers? Does that kind of answer that for you a little bit?
Yes, thank you very much. Those are great suggestions.
Sure. Any other questions?
All right, Councilmember Alaman, I'm bringing you in. Remember to unmute. Mr. Alaman, you're on. Yeah, there you go.
All right, great. Thank you, Catherine, for your presentation. Appreciate it so much. One of the questions I had was, what is the difference of building, connecting, educating these neighborhood associations between an HOA and a voluntary neighborhood? What are some things that you've seen?
One of the differences, they're actually pretty similar, except that if you ask my team, you have to have certain people that are dealing with certain types of organizations more. So our voluntary neighborhood associations, again, it's about half and half. We help form those. If people come to us and say, hey, we've got 4 or 5 people, we would love to form a neighborhood association, we will start them from beginning, doing public interest meetings. We'll help them with the marketing. We will post for them. We'll set up the full structure of the meeting by making sure that their council members there, their neighborhood patrol officer, their code compliance officer. And the purpose of that is to say, okay, can we get enough interest for us to actually create a neighborhood association? And if we get enough of a response, then we'll help them by helping them write their bylaws. We'll help them with interim board elections, and then we'll kind of stay with them until that board says, we got this. We don't need you anymore. You can go mess with somebody else. And so we will really do a lot more hand-holding with our voluntary neighborhood associations. Our HOAs obviously will typically have property managers that they're paying. Even though you would think that our voluntary groups take more time, and they do, because typically they will meet on a monthly or quarterly basis. So it takes more of they want things a little bit more often. Our HOAs actually require us to have not only relationships with the board of the HOA, but we have to have relationships with our property managers. And I will say, it's one of the bigger challenges because property management companies are hired and fired all the time. And so we think we have a really strong relationship with one group, and then they move around to others. Sometimes property managers will be kind of they want to be the gatekeeper and have a little bit more control over the amount of information that's shared with the board members of the neighborhood association. And so we have to make sure that that our leadership is aware that we're there to help them. They may pay the property managers to handle some of the day-to-day administrative staff, but when it comes to actually engaging with the communities, that has to be the board. It really has to be a neighbor-to-neighbor thing. And we do that by telling our HOAs that, you know, there are city things that we're responsible for, like code violations and things like that. And with HOAs, you guys have covenants that are different than the city's responsibilities. Let the city deal with the stuff that's the city, and then let your property managers or your board members handle the things that are not. It's the city's job to do certain things. Turn that stuff in and let them deal with it instead of having the intermediary on that. That's one of the bigger things that we actually talk a lot about with HOAs. Making sure that you are leveraging the partnerships that you have. One of the great things about our office is that not only is each liaison assigned to your area, they're the experts of that area because they are in and around with everything, and they're working with council and all of the different departments to know what's happening. And so they're great at being able to say, you know, these are the things that are happening. This is how we can help you get there. But they're also, they know that they can call Tracy, for instance, and Tracy can tell them exactly who in the city can fix this problem. So it's not on the HOA. Sometimes our HOAs take on way too much responsibility that they don't have to. Leverage those responsibilities to someone else, let them do their job. And then all you have to do is hold them accountable, and you can focus more on the fun neighbor piece of it. It's just a little bit more intricate with that, but we will do the re-engage program with an HOA, just like we will with a voluntary group. Whether we're do any of the things that we're doing, it's just more relationship building when you've got an HOA that you need to deal with. So does that answer your question?
It does. It does.
Okay.
Thank you. And I had one other question also about churches that are already doing neighborhood outreaches. Mm-hmm. They're out there doing neighborhood outreaches. How would you tie them in with a neighborhood association, or helping to build into a neighborhood association, or whatever they might do there, so it can just kind of accelerate?
So for our city, and I think for most cities in Texas, our faith-based groups are pivotal to everything that we do. An example is, so our schools we could have neighborhood association meetings in schools. And that was a great place to have them, especially for our HOAs. And there are 7 different school districts in the city of Fort Worth that we work with. The biggest one is Fort Worth ISD. The school district started charging for people, and it's not a lot of money. I mean, it's $75 to be able to do that, to hold a meeting there. But for our voluntary neighborhood associations that don't require dues, that might as well be $1 million. They just cannot afford to be doing that. And even within HOAs, it's just a little bit harder. So we register churches not only for communication, but we also ask them whenever they give us their contact information, would you be willing to let a neighborhood association meet in your church? It does a lot of things. For one, it allows our churches to make sure that they are really ministering to the neighborhood that they live. Because a lot of churches, and I'm just speaking for Fort Worth, a lot of our churches, even the small ones, they've got members that maybe grew up there, but then they moved off to a different part of the city and they just want to go back to that church. If they're a really large church, they could be pulling from all over the place. And so they're not always necessarily making the biggest impact in the neighborhood where they live. And so that was a way for us to kind of connect them to more neighbors locally. Just having the option, are you willing to be there so that we can host a meeting there? When you do that, you're getting your foot in the door to be able to partner together. Then when it's things like a vacation Bible school event, they now have all the resources of the neighborhood, and they can go and speak at the meetings to say, hey, we're going to have this great outreach event. Love to have you be a part of it. Would you like to volunteer? It's churches, as you know, are also no different than our neighborhood associations and any other organization where you've got 20% of the people that are volunteering to do the bulk of the work. So the more that you can get our churches together within the neighborhood association so that they're intertwined, the more capacity that you have. We like to have our neighborhood associations, we strongly encourage them to become best friends with the principal of whatever school is in around their area. Make them come to your meetings every now and then and say, this is what's happening. Are you aware that some of our kids don't have school supplies? Are you aware that some of our kids are not reading at the grade level? Are you aware of all these needs? Because sometimes one of the biggest things that our neighborhood associations don't do as well as we want them to is they're thinking big, they're thinking very big picture. Like, are people following the rules? Are we having our mandatory meeting that we have to have or we're going to get in trouble? Are we going to be able to meet quorum? But what we want them to focus on are the true community needs. What is it that is going on right now that we can help with? And sometimes people just don't know that they've got kids in their neighborhood that are not eating over the weekend, or that we don't know that, the majority of the parents in this specific area don't speak English. We need to make sure that things are being translated. And so it's connecting people in as many different ways as we can. And faith-based, that is a wonderful opportunity to really reach out to the neighborhood on a lot of different levels.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for your presentation.
No problem.
All right, we have time for one more question. Mr. Ward, remember to unmute.
That picture.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, City, for putting this on, and Catherine for your presentation. My question kind of connects to the 80-20 rule. What size number of rooftops would you consider a viable neighborhood association? I live in a neighborhood that is Casa Terrace, and it's really based on builders. They built this neighborhood, and it is different from the folks on one side of the major artery and like that. So if we were to use Casa Terrace, and I really haven't counted the plot size, the number of plots or houses or anything like that, but what would be a good, what is the minimum and maximum when it start talking about rooftops and people involvement and things like that?
So there's two different answers to it, obviously. So you've got your HOAs, and because whatever those boundaries are that the builders have set, that's with the Secretary of State's office. We don't get to change those. It could be 1,000 rooftops. Usually for an HOA, you're going to have that many unless they're on large, lots. Sometimes you'll get like a 2-acre lot and you'll have smaller. But we've seen HOAs because they keep adding phases. And so you could have 5,000 that's technically in the same neighborhood association. Sometimes what will happen is, and again, we can't change the overall boundaries, but what we can kind of do is separate them out into, we don't call them phases, but just different, they might identify themselves as a different name based on the street block that they're at, or maybe the park that they're across the street from. Sometimes it's better to, and you can kind of do that for generic community engagement pieces of it, so that you have, whether it's block captains or you have section leaders that are really targeting that area. And then you still all get together once a year for your mandatory meeting that you have, but you can separate things out. And then with our voluntary groups, if we're forming those, it is all about capacity. When people come to us because they're already formed and they're just not getting enough people to participate, it's probably because their boundaries are too big, and they really need to go back and look and say, who do you have the contact information for? First of all, if you don't have email addresses, phone numbers of current neighbors that are within your area, then you can't effectively provide that outreach. You can't just put it on a website and think people are going to go and find it, or put it on social media. You have to go out there and truly have that contact information. People, how many emails do we all get a day? Okay, we're not going to read them all. I mean, we're just not, no matter what the subject line is. So do I have a relationship with Maria? Do I know that if she sends this to me and this is something that I need to be a part of, that I'm actually going to do it because I have that relationship? So when we are either forming a new neighborhood association or looking at a group that's trying to decide how do we do a better job, you need to go less is more. Less is always going to be more. You can expand as your organization really starts to grow. And the only way it grows is if, when you look, unfortunately, at special events and meeting attendance, if I send out an email to everyone in my distribution list and say, these neighbors don't have water because of the storm last week, how can you help? And nobody responds, you're not doing a good job of community outreach. I mean, it just is, it's that clear. If you send out that same email and you have so many people that are responding, you have an engaged group. Great job. And so if you're sending out blanket just because you've got an email distribution list, or that one, they may not even live there anymore. So less is always more. It's seeing really how engaged you are. I would always suggest with any of our groups, if we're just at the ground level, you just want to get a good idea of what's happening with your city as a whole. Ask your neighborhood leaders, or as a city, you can do this, survey your neighbors. Send out a blanket survey that asks them really detailed questions. Whatever your neighbors were expecting from you as an organization, a year and a half ago or a year ago is going to be different now. It just is. We're all different based on the things that have happened with COVID personally, through our work, the amount of capacity that we have, and also how are we wanting to make a difference. That is a big deal right now. When it's why we started doing the work sharing program. So many people were doing things and coming to the table and calling us and saying, how can I help? What can I do? We have this. Can we do a food pantry in our front yard once a week? I mean, some of the out of the box things that usually you would think only a church or area agency is going to provide. And we had neighbors that were saying, I'm working from home. I have extra time. What else can I do? You won't know that if you don't ask. And so we tell our neighbors, I mean, this is a perfect time to do it, but just ongoing, we tell all of our leaders, survey your neighbors once a year. Take the time to spend the money to do it. We'll help you. We will create the survey for you and then give you all the login information so you can do it. But you need to know because it's changing constantly. And they're not going to be able to adapt if you don't give them the tools that they need. But always less is more. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Ward, for your participation today. So at this point, we've been at it about an hour. So first of all, thank you, Catherine. Really appreciate your presentation, answering those questions. It's again good information. Hopefully, inspires some good thoughts and some good ideas amongst our neighborhood leaders who are on the call today. So we're gonna jump into a little bit of trivia to have a little bit of fun today. So we're gonna ask you to we're gonna lower all the hands right now, and so if you want to answer the question, first person that we see to raise their hand will be brought in, and you have to answer. And I like to make these things kind of tricky, so make sure you listen to the entire question, and then we'll get your gift card to you. We have gift cards to Saltgrass Steakhouse, Texas Roadhouse, On the Border, and Mesquite Barbecue. So first up is Saltgrass gift card. And so first question is, in 1978, there was a movie filmed at Town East Mall. Name the movie and the famous director. All right. Jana, I'm bringing you in. Remember to unmute.
Well, I should have listened to your advice about listening to the whole question. I know it's Cotton Candy, and I think it is Gary Marshall.
Close. Think Andy Griffith's show and Happy Days.
Ron Howard.
Ron Howard. Very good. So congratulations. So Maria remembered Jana Hubacek. So thank you. All right. We're lowering all hands. And next question. So in 1959, Big Town Mall opened as the first indoor mall in the South. What was the unique feature that Big Town had that no other mall had? All right, Ron Ward, saw your hand up first. Remember to unmute.
Air conditioning.
Air conditioning, correct. Very good. Ron gets the Roadhouse gift card. All right. Next question. Mesquite Barbecue. It's been around for 62 years, I believe. What is the nickname for the burnt ends of the brisket that they served? No Mesquite Barbecue fans? Oh, I see Chief Cato jumped in, but he's heard these before. So, all right, Jana.
You don't have to let me win twice, but it's chop chop.
It's chop chop. No, you get to win twice. We'll let you do it. Anybody who's a fan of Mesquite barbecue. So, all right. Last question. And remember, listen to the entire question before you raise your hand. So, the movie Problem Child was filmed in and around Mesquite. Name the star of the movie and the 1970s TV show that he was a star of. And remember, city employees are not eligible to win, Mr. Larson. All right. Oh, I see Kevin Grubbs. Remember to unmute.
John Ritter and Three's Company.
Congratulations. Thank you. You are correct. So there are many stories around Mesquite about the filming of Problem Child and all of the different areas. So if you go watch the movie, you'll see lots of the old offices in our old city hall. So with that fun over, we're gonna spend a few more minutes answering any questions. If you have about the city, about your neighborhood, it can be from what's going on to why do we send code notices for addresses on houses. So we're happy to answer any questions. So please feel free to raise your hand. All right, Millie.
My question is in regard to follow-ups for the cold freeze and the damages that are done in apartment complexes. I have some friends that are living in large apartment complexes in Mesquite that are telling me that the repairs have been done, but yet there's holes in the walls and they still can't use their shower and they're having difficulty with management. And so I'm just kind of wondering, is there some follow-up that's being done with code enforcement to follow up regarding all of these apartment complex damages that are done because of the cold?
Well, our first priority was to get water running in all of the units. And so that's why we prioritized those repairs and are allowing the apartment complexes time to go back and do the cosmetic repairs is what we would call them. I think if somebody is without a shower, I think that is probably a concern that they need to bring up to the management. Our expectation is that people have the ability to bathe, do their dishes, cook, and flush their toilets. And then, I would also ask anybody in an apartment to be patient. The extent of the damage is widespread, and many buildings, many units were damaged during the storm. So I would ask for patience, but we'll be out there kind of part of our routine inspections, and then we'll also add in return inspections on the apartments that we knew had the breaks. So, but again, first work with the management, and then if somebody's not working well with the management, have them call my office, the city manager's office.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Henry Brown, remember to unmute. Mr. Brown, you're free to talk. There you go.
Hello?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Top of the morning to you guys. So grateful to be on this morning. The information has been very, very informative. And I do have a question in regards to code and what they can do to alleviate various problems in the community. There is a issue in particular that caught my attention, and it has caught some of the neighbors' attention too, about wrecked cars in the driveway. I think that is giving birth to bottlenecking from other motorists that are trying to have access to the road. So do we have any type of code that we can possibly look at to help kind of move some of that wreckage from in people's driveway, where it has created somewhat of an eyesore type situation? I mean, what are the codes about wrecked cars in the driveway, and how can we, as a city, address that?
Well, that's a very good question, because it is one of the more difficult things that we have to enforce. And some of the challenges with COVID have made it even more challenging. So Maria, Raymond, either one of y'all want to take a stab at that one?
Sure. Mr. Brown, so we do have city ordinance against junk or inoperable vehicles on private property. And we do actively address those. And as Mr. Kahili indicated, we do have a little bit of an impediment right now because of COVID. There was some basically some reprieve provided for the registrations not being current. And so our ability to actually tow those inoperable vehicles off of the property right now is kind of at a halt. So our only option right now is to cite, and that's only if it meets additional categories such as dismantling, wreckage, and things like that. If there is certain places that you're having concerns, I'd be happy to take those from you and make sure we have active cases going on those. I do know that in April, I'm not exactly certain of the date, but I think that reprieve that I was just speaking of should be moving on now that county offices are reopening and registrations are being issued in a more timely fashion. And it'll allow us the ability to do our job more effectively. Although the abatement of a nuisance like that is timely, usually 30 to 60 days because of the notification process, but we'll be able to get back to abatements and solving those issues entirely.
To follow up on Maria, it's April 13th is the date that the governor's reprieve, in essence, will be lifted. I will also say that a lot of times we find neighborhood issues not really being communicated to us in some instances. I'm not sure if this one is, but just as a reminder, the city has an app, My Mesquite. If you download that app, that is the most efficient way to communicate with staff. And it also holds us accountable in ensuring that we're following up with issues. Maria and I get emails on items that go without any type of a status change after a certain period of time. So it is really good for us as an accountability tool as well. So be sure to report those in that application.
I would certainly do that, and I did forget about the reprieve. I did forget about that. There was the issue from the governor that talked to what you guys are talking about right now. I forgot about that, but yeah, you are right. And that my app does work. I have used it before, and I'm just so grateful that app is in place to help residents. And thank you for answering the question.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, Tia, you're in the meeting.
Hi. My question's for Catherine. Good morning. What are some good ways that y'all have seen in Fort Worth to bring kids on in volunteer capacities? Because they're looking for volunteer hours. What are some ways right now that are good ways to bring them in and let them see the fun side of being involved so that they just want to keep doing it?
By the way, love the app. We have the My Fort Worth app too. Game changer for city staff. So much better. So that is really one of the best opportunities in COVID. We really noticed a lot with kids because so many of the kids were at home and being homeschooled. A lot of the worst sharing stories that we had were from kids. They were the ones that were doing some really cool things with their neighborhood associations. For our high school kids that are trying to get the Honor Society credits, or sometimes just for graduation, you've got to gap so many volunteer hours. One of the best things that we've been able to do is for those students who are bilingual, we have asked them to partner with their neighborhood association and translate, because sometimes maybe their parents or other people in the home are not as comfortable, so they won't attend neighborhood association meetings because they're not always translated. You know, there's only so much capacity that city staff has to do that. We do it really as an as needed basis. But if you can get those teenagers involved, or even college students, for example, TCU and Texas Wesleyan and TCC, they all have really robust community engagement programs through that they're offering to the students. It's much more of an up and coming thing now, and there's actually degrees for it where there didn't used to be. And so if you can get them to be interested in going into the neighborhood associations and helping at that level, they can also be the ones that are passing out flyers, that are being the advocates at the schools. Sometimes we will have with elementary schools, like I said before, where you invite the principal to come out. We've had neighborhoods who have adopted the schools. And so they'll have a class representative that will come in and do a report for the neighborhood association about something that happened. Maybe it's Black History Month. They've done some really great stuff with that. Just lots of opportunities to get the kids involved. But I think it starts with getting with the principal and the PTA. I don't know how active your PTA is in Mesquite. I used to live in Garland, so it was just huge there.
They're huge, yeah.
We're all kind of intertwined there. So I cut my teeth with PTA stuff. And so I think that as neighborhood associations, if you are not reaching out to your local PTA, huge missed opportunity. One, again, that 20% rule for volunteerism, you're going to get some really great volunteers, but they know what's happening with the schools and where it is that you could fit in with your neighborhood association. So many times these special events that the schools that are doing, or PTA is doing in neighborhoods, either they should be great opportunities to intertwine, but also to really kind of expand who would even think of being a part of a neighborhood association. We have to remember that typically, take your hat off as if you're not a person that's with a neighborhood. If you are brand new moving in, there is a negative connotation to the term neighborhood association, because they're boring meetings. They just talk about money and all they want is for everybody to volunteer, or because somebody didn't paint their house the right color or whatever. So you got to redefine what that looks like. And I think working with the schools at all levels, you can really get a better insight as to what they need. And those kids will do it, especially right now. A lot of them are claustrophobic and they have not been able to have some of that interaction. They're also really good with tech, and they're great with running the Zoom meetings or WebEx or Google Meets and all of those things. They know how to pop a survey up in SurveyMonkey in 2 seconds. They can help with PowerPoint presentations. They're learning this so much early on than most of us ever thought about doing it. So taking advantage of those resources and mentoring them into new leadership roles, form a committee that's just led by maybe one kid. There's just so many different opportunities that you can do.
I absolutely love those ideas. Oh my gosh. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Tia, thank you for being on the call. All right, we have one more hand up. Brenda Jean Patrick.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to celebrate Catherine Huckaby's comment about technology and hybrid meetings. Taking that comment, I would encourage my city to look at every committee meeting, every town hall, every opportunity to engage a hybrid meeting. I believe that I am not the only person in Mesquite who would love to participate, but needs to participate through technology, whether it's your age, your mobility, or quite frankly, the number of children you have. I believe everyone will learn and continue to learn in the future to whip out that media device that we all carry around now, and we could become much more engaged. I have taken the time in the last 90 days to talk to many of my neighbors who had very successful careers about why they're not more involved as they enter their senior years. And they would simply reply, I guess if it was easier to attend a meeting or there wasn't stairs in my situation, I would participate. So I encourage my city manager and all other leaders in Mesquite to look at how do we increase everything in Mesquite with a tech component, even the Christmas lighting, everything. We could add a tech component. Thank you so much, Catherine, for your words of wisdom today. And I'd like to celebrate my city also for being innovative in having this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick, and thanks for your service. And again, one of the things that's notable about most of the people on this call and a lot of our neighborhood leaders are that they not only are neighborhood leaders, but they are also serving on various boards and commissions. And I think that, in my opinion, that helps people understand a little bit more about what's going on in the community, can explain a little bit more, kind of be that liaison and connection between neighborhoods and cities. So I think we have time for one more question if anybody has one. All right, Councilmember Green. All right, you're on the call. Remember to unmute.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, hello from quarantine, everybody. I just want to thank Cliff and the staff and then Ms. Huckaby for being here today, for putting this together. This is really good information. I think it's important for our community to engage with it in itself. The city staff can only do so much to hold us all together. So I appreciate all the information. And that's really, I just wanted to thank everybody. That's kind of what I wanted to get on here today, and thank everybody for attending, because it's important that you guys want to be here and want to get this information. So that's all I got. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Any other questions? Please raise your hand. Well, I'm not seeing any questions. Once again, I want to thank Catherine for your presentation today, and thank you for sticking around and helping us answer questions. Again, I think one of the things I've learned in my career with the city is that there are few original programs and all of that, and that we really need to look at our neighbors and the successes that they have and try to borrow from them whenever we can. So Catherine, you've got a good model in Fort Worth, and I think that's something that we can definitely model here in Mesquite as well. And I want to thank Maria and Raymond for your time this morning, for being on the call to answer questions. And then I really want to thank all of the attendees. Again, it's a lot to ask for you to be up early on a Saturday morning to talk city stuff. Some of us like to talk about it all the time, maybe too much, as I'm told at home. But it's really important that we have an active and engaged community. We can only do so much. We only have 10 code enforcement officers. We only have a certain number of building inspectors. Our police department has limited numbers. They can't be everywhere at all times. So we really depend on the people who are living in neighborhoods, keep their eyes and ears open, whether it's a suspicious person, a house that may be in decline, or maybe even that wrecked vehicle that shows up in the middle of the street one night. Those are the types of things that need to be reported. They need to be communicated to us so we can respond. But the other thing is the involvement, and having neighbors that can meet on a regular basis. And I will put in a plug to say that if you would like to hold a virtual meeting, if your neighborhood cannot get together, talk to me, Maria, or Raymond. We would be happy to host a virtual neighborhood meeting. We can help you with the Zoom technology. We've gotten quite good at it in the past 12 months. And so we're happy to help anybody that wants to try to pull together. And I'll also say, don't be discouraged by lack of attendance. Everybody's got a busy schedule. If you look at your calendar and imagine what your neighbor's calendar looks like, it's very hard for everybody to meet up at a 7 o'clock on the third Thursday of every month. You're just not going to reach everybody. But don't be discouraged by attendance at your meetings. It's the people may just want to observe and know what's going on. So be out there communicating. Let's work on our Facebook and social media pages to make them informational, make them the things that people will want to follow. Work on your email list, your phone call list, anything that you can do to communicate to residents and your neighbors, just to let them know that somebody is watching out and providing that little bit of knowledge makes for a better community because we have a better informed citizenry. And lastly, just as we start looking forward to kind of coming out of some of the COVID restrictions, we'll be opening up our rec centers for groups to be able to meet again. We will be encouraging masks. We're not going to deny you access to our facilities. So if you've been wanting to meet and haven't had a place, consider our rec centers. Reach out to some of the churches in your neighborhood. I think everybody's starting to kind of stretch their legs a little bit, figure out what life is like in this stage of COVID. But always be careful and make sure that you're protecting your neighbors and protecting yourselves. But as Catherine said, let's not get rid of the virtual platforms. I think these are great ways for people to interact, especially just to hear some neighborhood information. Finally, we've got some activities coming up over the next few weeks. We have our second of our community health town halls. And this one's on nutrition. We'll have representatives from Mesquite ISD, the Visiting Nurse Association, and our Parks and Recreation Department to talk about nutrition. And that's this Tuesday at 7 o'clock. And then on the 20th, March 20th, we have a business symposium for our Black-owned businesses in Mesquite. And Mr. Brown with the NAACP is sponsoring that along with Mesquite Chamber of Commerce. And we'll have a panel interview. And I'll say it's not just for minority-owned businesses. I think anybody who has a business or is interested in being an entrepreneur, there's some really good people who are going to be on this panel that are going to talk about some different aspects of networking and promoting your business. And then we are moving forward with some other programming. One of the things, it's always good after an event like the ice storm is to do a kind of a reality check on how prepared we are and whether we as a city are prepared, but also our residents. We learned through the ice storm with a major power outage, lots of water out due to pipes breaking, that we want to make sure our residents are prepared to survive that 24 to 48 hour period without a lot of difficulties. So we're going to be doing some programming on education on emergency preparedness. And the last thing I want to say is that my office is always open. My email is on our city website. So is Maria, and so is Raymond. If you ever have any questions or if there's anything that we can do to make you more successful in your neighborhood, don't hesitate to ask. We will find ways to help educate you, give you the tools and resources, or even send out a city staff member to help you. And all three of us are happy to attend any of your neighborhood meetings. If it's a Crime Watch meeting, anything like that, we're happy to be there just to answer questions. We don't have to do a presentation. but we're happy to do anything like that. So on behalf of the City of Mesquite and the City Council, we want to thank you for what you do for our community, and we hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you for being here today.